Tell you what, how can it be Monday again? 1 minute it's like Thursday, yeah, and we're doing the ABC of CBD with Ollie Mammon. Nice, or 6 o'clock. Then it's Friday, and you think, oh, nearly the weekend, which makes very little difference to me. And then, blow me down, it's Monday again. If you follow me on Facebook, hello, I'm Russ Kane, by the way. Welcome to the Daily Show, another week of fun and frolics. Be very careful how I say that, by the way. Very careful. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday, all, says Facebook user. So you're watching us on the Espresso Bar. You can watch us on YouTube, on everywhere. We're on all the platforms, but also on my own site, which is the Espresso Bar, which is something I set up a couple of years ago. Which was kind of one of the ideas as well with Men's Radio. So there we go. Hope you had a nice weekend. Here we go. It's always nice to start off. I like this, like two-way family favorites. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome all, says Emma Webb, who's very, very sweet. I've never met her, but she seems extremely nice. It was great. Robert Van Buren. Hi, Russ. Man, this is so cool. Robert Van Buren. I don't know where you live, Robert. Probably best not to tell me because I might turn up. You know what I'm like. Asa Don Brown. I can never say it just like Asa Don Brown. I have to say Asa Don Brown. Good day from the northeastern corner of the states. You got to help me because northeast. That's Chicago. That's Wyoming. I have no idea. Where's the northeastern corner? Where is that? I love it. We have all these people from the states. Kentucky. When Mary Williams, I always think it's Mary G. Williams. I always think it's Mary G. Blythe coming on. Where is the northeastern corner of the states? Your starter for 10. No conferring. Yes, must take your first answer. Keys College, Cambridge. We go from. This is so British, isn't it? It's so British. We go from the northeastern corner of the states to New Malden. Ian Foreman, hello to you. Oh, he's in New York. So New York State. All right, New York State is the northeastern corner of this. Yeah, that makes sense. What else we got here? Chrissy Richards coming in from Spain. I love this. Hello, hope you're well. After awful weather until yesterday, gales, torrential rain, warm sun now. Today, St. Mark's Day. St. Mark's Day? That's where you can take your underwear back if you've kept the receipt. That's St. Mark's and Spencer's Day. Day closed and everyone picnicking. Couldn't shop. Chrissy, what you need is planning. Bit of planning there. That would have sorted that one out. And then we've got from Spain, and it's all happening today. Blimey. New Malden, Russ, just down the road from Neil. I'm presuming that would be who's in? Oh, right. Oh, Neil. Oh, Neil Long. The very late Neil Long, his sense of timekeeping. Jesus. Oh, look, and she turns up. I mentioned her, and she turns up. This is like magic, gang. This is like magic. Mary G. Williams, good day from a middle corner of Kentucky. Isn't that sensationally good? Spain, Kentucky, and New York State. I love it. And New Malden. Let's not forget New Malden. Very, very important. Right, Chrissy Richards, back from Spain. Didn't know until we went shopping. Chrissy, I have absolutely no way of being critical. Can I tell you why? I thought I was on a new launch of a whole new TV station tomorrow. Turns out I'm such a dick. Turns out it's tonight. The producer just phoned me and telling me everything. And I thought I got it all wrong because it's, oh God, hardly embarrassing at all. What have we got here? Now, what have we got here? Good day for the middle. Oh, no, we've done that one. Hang on. We got Leslie and Jones. Nino, Ni Hao from Surbiton. I'm lost. Look, Leslie, Ian Jones, I'm lost all the time. So please don't apologize. I just wake up and going, I don't understand what the hell's going on. Paul Andrews, morning chaps and chapesses. You're in a feisty good mood today. And I like that. I for once actually had a very nice weekend. The twins were over for lunch and it was lovely to see them. And if you're a parent or you're a grandparent, but if you're a parent watching hey, back to America, sorry. We've gone to Kentucky. We've gone to New York State. Now we go to Manhattan. So good. They named it twice. Elizabeth Green. Good morning to you, Elizabeth. And what have we got here? I will speak to you later, Mr. Monroe, because what you wrote little concerning. So we will have a little bit of a chit chat after the show. Right. Wishing you well, fella. Now let's get on to our first. I've no idea where Neil Long is. I may have to fire him. I'm being brutal here. It's a tough gig. I want to say congratulations before we go. Make me laugh, please. Well, no, Elizabeth, I'm keeping my trousers on. I'm sorry, but that's not that sort of show. Now, what have we got here? David Wimble says hi. He's on a Facebook ban. David Wimble, who is Mr. Grand Fromage at Deluxe Radio. Tom, I'll be with you in a second, fella. He's what bloody hell? So he's on a Facebook ban. What's he done? He said, "My name's David Wimble," and they go, "We hate you. You're banned." Andrea Lucas, hello, Andy. Good job. I'm keeping my trousers on. Damn right. It's quite cold out, and I'm nervous. And then we've got Robert Van. Maybe Neil needs another clock to be on time. Robert, what Neil Long needs is a kick up the posterioso. Oh, good. I made her laugh. My work here is done on your planet. Back to my mothership. Right. Let's get on with our first guest. Just want to say this. Very, very proud. Tom, be with you in a sec. Hold on. Just want to say that I'm very proud of Phil Dave. Phil was a great friend of mine. We've worked together for many, many years at the BBC and other places. And then he started working at Talk Radio. And he's worked his way up the greasy pole. And he's too busy. I mean, he's just so busy. Phil and I speak every day, by the way. I don't want anyone thinking, "Ooh, there's been a falling out." Couldn't be further from the truth. We speak for ages every single day. And Phil is under enormous pressure. He's got a huge job and a huge task. He's posted some new pictures. He looks fantastic. And I'm very, very proud of him. Very proud of him. First guest. When I was at school, yes, I did go to school. I did have a formal education. Who knew? I was at school with a guy called Patrick Humphreys, who was a terrific fellow. And 200 centuries later, just about all these many, many decades later, I've reunited with Patrick, and we've found we've got so much in common. And we go and have lunch occasionally and talk about the old days, but not really. We talk about mostly music and books and films. He's just the most interesting guy. And he has a friend called Tom Mitchelson. And blow me down, look who's here. It's only Tom Mitchelson. Can you hear me, Tom? No, can't hear you. Tom, can't hear you. You've got to press a button or something.
Hear me now? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Russ?
Hello, I can hear you perfectly.
You can?
I can.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, I took the headphones out. Maybe that's...
Maybe
yes,
that.
hello.
Well, it could, who knows? I mean, who the heck knows? It's technology, so I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't be asked. Now, Tom, welcome to the Daily Show. Thank you very, very, very much for coming. How did you know Patrick Humphreys? Was my description of Patrick wrong? Just an interesting erudite man.
I would say it was fairly spot on. And I met him on a press trip, because I'm sort of not really anymore, but I was a journalist, as indeed Patrick was. And I met him on a press trip to Memphis, which was all about music and food. And
sounds terrible. Sounds dreadful.
Yeah, exactly. So we just hit it off, had a great time chatting, and of course he's just sort of met everyone, hasn't he, in music? So he's just
quite extraordinary, because he was crap at school. Let's be honest. Let's not kid ourselves. He was rubbish. He was absolute rubbish. He never was. It's a weird thing. The thing about I want to just divert slightly, because this radio station is all about mental health and well-being.
Yeah.
So we were all kids at school, and Patrick got cancer, and they took off his leg. Oh, we're getting an echo because you need your earphones in. Try and see if you can do your earphones again, because otherwise you're going to hear me coming through your speaker on your laptop. Which,
let me try again, but
yeah, it should work.
So can you?
Nope. We'll have to live with it, gang. Sorry. Anyway, so they took Patrick's leg off. Now, as this was in time when we were scared of dinosaurs and saber-toothed tigers on the way to school, they were brutal about it. It wasn't like the surgery that you have now. So Patrick, from a kid, had a serious disadvantage. And he's done so well, and his demeanor never, ever altered. You know, I get a paper cut, it's the end of the world. Patrick has his entire leg off as a kid and never moaned, never heard him complain. He's an exemplary guy. And I say that because we're all about mental health. Tell us about yourself, Tom.
Well, right. You're right about Patrick. Just to say, and it's quite incredible, really, because back then when he had his leg off as a consequence of all that, and that was back then when sort of those things were kind of brushed under the table.
Totally.
You go in, you have your leg off, and then you're sent out of hospital. In his case, sent to the limb sort of amputation, the limb center, and you get on with it. And there's no kind of, and it's pretty tough. And actually, I mean, I'll come on obviously to ask me to say about myself, but one thing that I have in common with Patrick is that my mum, when she was 14, she had her hand amputated because she had a sarcoma. Yeah, a childhood cancer, and it was a very similar story.
Everybody, I'm so sorry. Tom's got some technical issues, so he's not using earphones, which is why you're hearing my voice coming through his speakers. Pain in the bum, but nothing you can do about it. I've never heard of having to have your hand amputated because of cancer. Wow.
Yeah, I think back then that was all that you could do about it. I mean, now perhaps they would have been able to treat the cancer, but back then the only option was to just cut it off at the source to get rid of it. Yeah. So and that was back in 1961, where again it was this sort of she went into hospital. Her parents left the day before the operation, and returned 2 days after when she'd had the operation. So
stop.
That's tough, isn't it? It's tough.
It is interesting, and the good thing I want to turn this into a more positive thing, because the medical engineering and the advancements of medicines and surgery means that people like Patrick and your mum would never endure that now in 2020. It would not happen now. And even it's coming up to the anniversary of my wife's death, and even now, between then and now, the medical advances are absolutely huge. So it's a good thing. We make progress every single day, one way or another. Absolutely. Right, now we've cheered everybody up. Tom, why are you here? Why are any of us here? Now, why are you here?
Well, you very kindly invited me to come on and talk with you, and Patrick suggested it to you. I've written a book. I've got it here called "Don't Ask Me."
No, we can't see anything. Put it nearer your camera. No, and towards there we go. Don't hold it down. Don't ask me about my dad. Isn't my reading coming on, everybody? Isn't it?
There you go. You got the title down. There you go.
That's all I can see because it was glaring off the light.
So I wrote this book. It's out now. It's published by HarperCollins.
Uh-huh.
And actually, I mean, it's about some pretty. I had a pretty rough childhood, which I've only recently. I'm 44 now, and I've only recently really tried to face and confront some of the things from my past. For a long time, like a lot of people, I kind of buried all the difficulties from my childhood because it was just a kind of easier way of getting on with life, and it was all a bit too painful to look back at. But for various reasons, I kind of came to confront it. It's been an entirely good thing for me to be able to actually really get a grip on the past and see and sort of examine what happened as I grew up. And the outcome of all that, I'm a writer anyway, but the outcome was that I wanted to start to put it down on page, just to as a way of kind of understanding my past as well. And yeah, and the book's out. It came out.
So was it? Let's start to. Oh dear me, this is quite annoying. Is it? Let's try and dice and slice and dig down a little bit more. Were you sort of pottering along quite happily before you started to sort of take off the scab of memory, as I kind of think of these things, and you think, I've uncovered a whole can of worms here. Maybe I should have just left it. Or is it easier now? You processing as a 41-year-old adult, you can get some handle on your life. And this is coming in from New York State. Azadon Brown, congratulations, Tom Middleton. I'll definitely check out your manuscript. Boom. There you go. That's an endorsement for you. It's a proper endorsement because Azadon Brown is very senior in the therapeutic community in America. So no mean feat. So my question was, were you happier before? Or do you think you're happier now?
Well, it's not even comparable, really. I'm sort of the happiest I've ever been, and
Wow.
I think that the process, I went through my life beforehand, not really aware that I was in turmoil. I felt, because it's the only way that I knew how to exist. So I kept sort of moving, running from things. I had a lot of tension kind of built up in my body, physically, in my back.
Did you have any idea why?
No, because I just thought, basically, I grew up in a very, my father was a very violent man. So he was hugely violent towards my mum.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And like a lot of these things, my mum stayed with him for a very long time. So we didn't leave the house till I was 16. And we were in and out of women's refuges during that time.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah, it was fairly extreme. And the book, and then also let's get all the sort of the dark stuff out the way. But also at that time, when I was 13, I then began to be, obviously it puts you in a very vulnerable state if you grow up as a kid like that. For as long as I can remember, it was terrifying. I'd sit on the stairs, my legs would shake, and as a kid, you've got no real way of dealing with it, of processing it. How can you? It's all and it's just the way of being.
Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got identical triplet sisters. So yeah, born in 1969, so before IVF, so a totally natural multiple birth, but also because they're identical, it's kind of a 1 in 10 million chance. And they're older than me, so 8 years older. And my dad was pretty unpleasant to them too.
What was the matter? What was the matter with your father? Why was he a violent brute? Putting it mildly.
I think it's difficult to, he certainly never looked at his own life or why he was like that. I mean, he would just deny being that way. So he would deny the things that he had done. And I guess that's often the way with abusers, that, you can't really acknowledge or take responsibility for what you've done because it's too horrible. It's too dark. It causes you to face up to too much. And I guess if you were able to take responsibility for that kind of behavior, you probably wouldn't do it in the first place. So I don't know what happened to him in his past to make, I kind of assume that all this stuff is kind of pulled together in childhood, really.
I was going to ask you where he's. Oh, this is. I'm so sorry, everybody, about this sound. There is a setting that you can put, sound from one thing and your hearing, you can just put to earphones. There's a setting on the top bar. I should be able to do that, and it would stop having to hear me, because hearing me once is more than enough for me. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. I'm just
not
sure I
were his parents, were they violent? Did he have a horrible childhood?
So I think his dad certainly hit his mum, but I think that I think it was on, not that this makes it better. I suppose it makes it better if it's not all the time, but I think it was only on 3 or 4 occasions that happened.
Well, that's 3 or 4 too many.
Yeah, completely. So he saw that, but I think also possibly he hinted to me a couple of times that his mother was very cruel to him, with punishments and things like that. And I think that he certainly kind of hated women. So, yeah,
So
I mean,
having triplet daughters must have been a joy.
yeah, exactly. And I think that what sort of kept, I had a relationship with him, obviously when we were in the house, but afterwards as well, I sort of tried to maintain a relationship with him, even though he was a very difficult man.
What did he do for a living, by the way?
Well,
if you say he was a psychiatrist, I'm really going to have to give up on everything I'm trying to achieve here on the radio.
No, he wasn't. He was, but I mean, first of all, he found it very difficult to hold down a job. So he was in and out of work all his life, really. But when he was working, he was a journalist. So he was a journalist in Fleet Street, sort of as working for the Press Association, doing pieces for the Mirror, the Express, things like that.
Wow. So Dave Sleet, who is the head honcho at A&A, and another fabulous psychotherapeutic organization, marvelous fellow as well, releasing the anchors. I read these out, Tom, because we also go out on deluxe radio, so they just hear us. But there's about 70,000 people or so who just hear us, but they don't see us. So in case you think I'm taking up your airtime, he says releasing the anchors of trauma can be a painful process. Boy, oh boy, you're right there. But the outcome can be the most powerful release that allows the true potential to shine. And then Elizabeth Green, who's watching and listening in Manhattan, New York, good for you, she says to you. Yes, it's often learned behavior. And a big learning for me was not to take things personally. I don't know how you do that. I really don't. It's admirable. And for me, quite impossible. And forgiveness is a big deal. Oh, this is interesting. Forgiving myself. Forgiving myself. You're going to talk for a second. I've got to do something. Just.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that, forgiveness, I'm not sure whether I would forgive my dad, but I think for me, it's more about acceptance. So if you have had a traumatic past, then facing up to that, understanding it as much as you can, and accepting that it happened, and that the fact that it happened is a reality is kind of important to do, especially with a paternal or any sort of parental relationship that's difficult. I think it's about accepting and understanding the good in that parent as well as the bad. And once you can do that those bad things happened, you're kind of more in control of it. So you sort of take ownership of it, really.
I'm so sorry about that. I can explain why. Some poor sausage has attempted twice. This was the third attempt to deliver something that I required. And I just couldn't let them go away again. I'm so sorry. Very unprofessional. Neil Long, you're fired. Dave Sleet says, generational oh my goodness me. He's got such a way with language. Generational transference of trauma is so common without professional support. Let's just go now to Spain. Chrissy Richards, hola. I read lots of books about this. It's very hard for women to leave. They live in fear of the man finding them, especially with children. Oh God, that's like a week's worth of programs right there.
Yeah,
so
well,
important.
I think that in my case, my mum, it's not just, there is the fear is a huge factor because he said on many occasions he would kill her, kill us. So it absolutely, and until you've been in that position, it's because often the response can be, well, why didn't she leave, or why didn't someone leave? But the fear is a big thing, but also it's about that control as well. It's and the kind of violence adds to kind of digging a hole that gets deeper and deeper, and it's very hard to get out of it. Especially in my case, this was back in the 80s when I grew up, where the help that you could get was very limited, and the understanding. I mean, when the police got called to our house, which happened on many occasions, it was always known as a breach of the peace. That's why they were called.
Yes.
So
I haven't heard that for ages. That phrase, breach of the
yeah,
peace.
yeah, and there was almost a view really that what happens in a man's home is his own business.
Oh man, yeah, man's home is his castle. He can do what the
Yeah,
hell he wants. It was. I'm not going to get into the whole woke bullshit, but it was a very different era, and women were not seen in the same way. I'm trying to couch my words carefully, in the same way that they are now, or I think in many ways respected as they should have been, as they are now. And I'm not going to get into the whole male.
there was an interview
patriarchy.
in the with Barbara Walters in America, with that Barbara Walters conducted with Sean Connery back in the 80s.
Oh,
And in
yes.
that interview, he says that so he was back then, it's a huge
Very
movie star,
physically
really.
big guy, very big guy.
But he talks about that it's okay to hit a woman if she steps out of line in that interview. And this is national television in America, and although there was a bit of a sort of, she challenged him, Barbara Walters challenged him on what he was saying. That was, it didn't damage his popularity. That was kind of an accepted view of at
If
the
you
time.
look back on it now, it sounds impossible. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you turn your laptop down or something? Because this is going to, I don't know, it shouldn't affect your volume on your mic. Is this that my lovely little friend who was minute, Lindsay the Poor, who died very tragically young, 2 weeks after we arranged a date to play table tennis together, and just dropped. And Lindsay dated Sean Connery for a while. Not nice. And that's why she took up self-defense. Not nice at all. And it didn't spoil his career. It's an amazing thing. Now the wind changes direction, you get cancelled. Your career's over. Then, oh yeah, it's all right to hit a woman. What? And your career flourishes. You're like one of the world's leading actors, biggest stars. It's dazzling, isn't it? So when you think we haven't always made progress, like the past is always fabulous, some of it was absolutely fantastic and some of it was rubbish.
Yeah, well,
that's the honest way of looking at it. And now this is from Linda Dave, who's being a very, very, very proud. I don't know if you were listening at the front end of the show, Linda, but I did pay tribute to the boy. Don't know if you heard it. I find it unbelievable, says Linda Dave, that if a child grows up seeing violence in the home, that when that child grows up, he would never want to do the same to his own family. But on the other hand, that was the example that was set to him, and he never knew anything different. So sad. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I think it's that, that you often copy that behavior. I mean, for me, I always wanted to define myself in opposition to my father. So seeing what my dad did, it made me, absolutely scared of getting angry myself, showing any form of aggression in any way. And I think also, but what it leaves you with is a lot of unresolved anger, and it's a bit of a wound that's bleeding.
And that anger, I always think. Let me just read this from Dave Sleet, and I want to talk about that point. Boy, you are one heck of a good guest. Thank you, Patrick. The AAA of healing is vital. Acknowledge, accept, apologize. That's the AAA of healing, says Dave Sleet. But has to start with the application to ourselves. Abuse. Oh my God! Listen to this. Listen to this. Abuse in the home was not illegal until 1976. Holy moly. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Back to New York. Exactly. You overcompensate in the other direction. Yeah.
Yeah, which, comes, its own problems come with it, because,
don't they just?
frightened of, you very much so. I was very frightened of becoming my father in a way.
Did you feel,
Yeah.
Tom, that lurking inside was this kind of werewolf, using a stupid example, that was there anyway because it was kind of in your DNA from your father, and you thought if you're not really careful in controlling how you are, it will just overtake you?
Yeah, I think that's it, and that's what I sort of talk about in my book a lot. That it kind of that he kind of lives within me a bit. I'm quite frightened of becoming him in certain moments. But obviously, I think being frightened of becoming angry is a terrible idea, because anger is a natural emotion. We need to be
Isn't
able
it?
to express it, but obviously in a kind of in not in a violent way. So, but because of that, because of how I'd grown up, I sort of felt that any expression of any anger kind of sent warning bells, or kind of a real tension, stress within me. So I kept everything bubbled under, never really expressing any kind of feelings.
That's murderous. Azadon Brown over in New York State says this: abusive relationships are commonly a result of two personality styles. One is a dominant and controlling personality, and the other style is submissive and a broken personality. Yeah. And I've never understood it. And then Elizabeth saying from New York, but my kids saw my mother and how she treated me, which wasn't great.
Yeah.
Such a myriad of emotions. It's interesting because my father wanted me to be the opposite of him. All I wanted to be was my dad. I thought he was, when I was a kid growing up, I thought he was the coolest man on the planet. And he wanted me to be the opposite. And it's interesting. It's interesting the things that he did so that I wouldn't be him. But it's in your DNA. And he was from Whitechapel when Whitechapel had not been gentrified. It was hardcore Whitechapel,
Yeah.
proper Whitechapel. And if I ever lose it, it's in my DNA too. I can't control it. But I know it. It's very, very, very rare. But if I ever lose it, boom, that's it.
Yeah.
It's total war. Total war. Very, very rarely happens. I mean, really, God, I don't know, every 20 years or something. But when it happens, Jesus, you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
So many comments coming in, Tom. Boy, oh boy, oh
Good.
boy. We've got Paul Claridge. We like to call him Paul COVID at the moment. My dad brought me up and my sisters to understand it's never acceptable for a man to strike a woman. Damn right. Excuse me. Being angry and having a verbal row is one thing. Being abusive and violent is a wholly different thing. Right. And let's not forget that domestic violence and abuse is something that can be perpetrated by both men and women. Amber Turd. Right. Absolutely so. Yeah. We'll come on to that. Elizabeth Green, boy, she's chatty today. So hard to be my own person. I'm 70. Are you 73? Jeez, I've had coffee when she's over in London. We had coffee twice. So hard to be my own person. I'm 73 now and own it. Good. That's how long it took me.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? That's how long it took me. So she's 73 and it's taken her all this time to be who she wants to be in her own person. Wow. And let's go to Edinburgh. It's all over the place today, which is great. Afternoon sounds like a very interesting topic. I will need to watch back vet. Everyone shares their lives here on this show. I need to watch back going to the vet for the 12-week jag. You've got a jaguar, so you've either bought a wild cat, or you bought a rather lovely sports car, or you meant jab. Could be any of those. We don't know, Veronica. She's from Scotland. Who knows? Bless her. Anyway, off you go to the vet. So you control. God damn. How did you start to process all of this, Tom?
Well, so I mean, the other thing, without wanting to throw too much into the mix, but
You go ahead. You're the guest. Say what you want.
But obviously, I see it very differently now. But at the time, I just thought I was a kind of normal kid. Just I could tell it was a difficult. I knew it was. But everywhere you look, as I said, you sort of see Sean Connery on the TV saying things like that. The police don't take it seriously. Even where we lived in Essex, next door neighbours were screaming and shouting at each other. That was life. Turn on EastEnders and you see kind of murder and gunfire or whatever.
That's why I won't watch it. I find it ugly. I find the people
exactly.
ugly.
But
I
you
find the
look at
people and the situations just ugly, and I haven't watched it forever because I just can't.
I'm just talking about when it started in the 80s. That was the kind of representation that you saw. So everywhere I looked, there was kind of chaos and violence, and I had no way of unpacking it. And at the time, obviously, I look at it different now. But I was also there was a teacher at the comprehensive school who began to groom me as well. So obviously, when you're a vulnerable kid,
Oh my
what
God!
happened to me? Yeah.
So
So
apart from that, Tom, how was your childhood?
yeah, exactly.
Bloody Nora, man!
Yeah.
What the
Well,
hell?
but I just grew up just putting this all aside, just putting it. I would talk with my mum about it, or about the domestic violence that happened, but we'd always talk about it like, well, that was bad. Glad we got out. That's over now. And I never really. I always thought about the thing that happened with the teacher. I thought it was a horrible situation. I felt like I had got
Did you
myself involved.
and you blamed yourself?
Yeah,
Why
I
do we
felt like I
hear
was
this
part.
time and time again? It's disgusting. It's how Savile got away with it.
Well, it's completely like this, like that, and I never really, how can you begin to unpick all that as a kid? We came from quite a deprived. We didn't have any money. We had. How can you even begin to unpick all that to understand it? And I couldn't.
Well, you're
So
a
what
child.
I,
How can you? You don't have the wherewithal to do that. You don't have the worldview. You're a child. So there's so many comments coming in. You've really touched a lodestone here, as they say. So this is coming in from Paul Claridge. This is real life, not fancy pants BBC life. It's real
Yeah.
life. The only plus side of having COVID, like his life isn't crap enough most of the days. What he goes through is just messages me a lot. And he's not having to go to East Croydon for a few days. I think it's worth getting bubonic plague not to go to East Croydon. Nothing against East Croydon, just don't want to go there. Even though my employer, this is nice, right? He works all hours, rain, sun, doesn't matter. Snow, he's there. Even though my employer is refusing to pay sick pay or statutory sick pay.
Yeah.
Get out of there. I hope the other thing happens. Elizabeth Green. Now this relates right back to you, Tom. Oh, I thought being spoken down to and demeaned happened in every house.
Yeah.
It doesn't, Elizabeth. It doesn't. It was normal. It may have been normal for you, but it's and the Wildcat Jaguar David Attenborough situation has been resolved. Breaking news. I've been and I meant jab. Now let's go back to New York State. Absolutely, Russ Kane. I've worked with several males who have been abused. Absolutely. It's a huge subject, and we've touched on it over the years at Men's Radio, and we will do again in depth. The sad part is that reporting and receiving the proper attention is commonly a greater challenge. I'd add to that, and we're seeing this in the Depp Heard fiasco, embarrassment. Well, that's for another day. That's for another day. And Dave Sleet was quite worried about Veronica Curran. He goes, World Wildlife Fund, animal adoption seems like it got hardcore. There's a woman up in Edinburgh walking around with a wild jaguar. Oh, God. And yes, this is a very good point. Elizabeth Green in New York. Having money changes nothing. No. Just makes you a richer and more unpleasant person as opposed to a poor unpleasant person. It's God. So how come, where have you found the strength to be the Tom Mitchelson we see before us, to write the book? You've escaped, if you like, two bloody awful, horrible things that can be life-defining. Let's be honest. Where did that strength come from?
Well, I mean, the consequences of that, when I kind of became an adult, I think that I was very defensive. I was very kind of untrusting of others. And I had a slight lack of empathy in that, I think when you can't feel your own pain, you can't really feel other people's. but also just I had that kind of tension, that kind of, I felt like, my shoulders were like rocks. And I always had this sort of feeling in my stomach that, and I was nervous of things, scared of things without admitting it to myself. So but I kind of wanted to be noticed in some way, I think, it kind of, you want some sort of, and so I started writing newspaper pieces. I started writing comedy shows, and I really tried to.
Let me stop you there. This is, and Linda Dave, Phil's mum, saying, what an amazing person Tom is after going through all that. I think you're speaking for people all over the world, Linda. Absolutely agree. Amazing person. Here's the thing. I'm going to be very, very blunt and very honest. When I was at my worst many, many, many years ago, I won the most number of awards for my comedy writing. Go figure.
Yeah.
15 international writing awards for my writing work, including in New York as well. And personally, I was a wreck. Professionally, never been better.
Yeah, but I think that sort of conflict within you, sometimes when there's unresolved things, it kind of drives you to achieve things sometimes, to give you that, if you were sort of if you were more resolved as a person, I think you can be, you don't have to strike out to be noticed as much, or to and I think sometimes that conflict can create, can channel quite a lot of creativity. So I mean, that's the only thing that I think that for me, I think I went into a world where I kind of wanted to have some sort of, I don't think I've been particularly valued as a child or heard. So I kind of wanted to get my words out there, or because I wanted to fulfill that gap, that gap that had existed somehow. So I think when things are motivated by some strong, feeling, especially from childhood, it kind of can drive you on to achieve things that maybe you might not have done had you been more resolved. If you can hold it together, if you don't turn to drink and drugs, which is often the
sure, because you want to escape.
Yeah.
And I would never do that, because I knew that would be the most ghastly, slippery slope. So I'm very self-disciplined like that.
Yeah.
Weirdly, Dave Sleet says this: as a 1976er, I presume that's an American football team. I've no idea. I am not a victim or a survivor. Oh, I like that. I hope Tom feels the strength of his evolution. That's very good.
Yeah.
That's really very good. Elizabeth saying this: being heard is huge.
Yes.
Except on social media, because everyone's got a bottom, but we don't always want to see them. So not every opinion on Twitter and Facebook really we want to know, because some people are idiots and you can't fix stupid. Dave Sleet, this is the balancing of survival, Russ. Absolutely fascinating. And I'm going to show this again from Linda. What an amazing person Tom is after going through all that. Do you feel bitter? Is there a part of Tom Mitchelson that deep down thinks, sod this?
Do you know, I am lucky because I do not feel bitter. And the reason is, I tell myself that I had an interesting life. In adulthood, I had an interesting life that was driven largely by the turmoil of the past. But it sent me off on quite an interesting journey, right?
Yeah.
Now, the fact that I've been able to confront it eventually, to understand it, has been an enormously empowering thing to go through. But also to see that life wasn't the life that I thought it was, to my own life included, that to see the world in a different way. If you grow up like that, I did certainly grow up defensive, untrusting, on edge all the time. And I put on a big show to try and pretend to be otherwise.
Exhausting, isn't it?
Which is very, very tiring.
It's exhausting.
Now, looking back at it now and confronting all that, I feel I see the world in a very different way. So I don't have to be on edge anymore. And I see that the world in many, many ways is very beautiful, and there is lots of love there and trust, and you can open yourself up to that. And that experience of understanding all that for the first time has been wonderful, because it wasn't the world that I thought existed. So for me, that experience is some compensation for what happened.
You see, I think I just want to deal with this, if I may. And Ramsey's making a very good point, because our friend Paul Claridge, who's so supportive of men's radio, and he's just a terrific chap who survived cancer, and I use the word survived, and has never been negative. Paul, that seems unfair. He's talking about the fact he's got COVID and he can't get sick pay. I'm sorry to divert away from you, Tom, just for a second, but it's important stuff. Did they take government money during the furlough months? Oh, good point, Ramsey. If you're a lawyer out there and you've got any advice, let us know. That would be great, because Paul deserves to be treated better than he gets treated like trash. Let's go back to New York State. Tom, I wholeheartedly agree, says Asa. It's not uncommon for those who are abused to have obsessive qualities and a need to control their world. Interesting. And the answer back to Ramsey is, my current employer didn't. I'm employed by an agency, but the client company did furlough a lot of staff. So yes, they probably did. Paul, look into it. Look into it, fella, because I want you to be okay. You deserve it. You deserve it. It's interesting about anger, though. In my first book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, in my first book, I wrote that anger is an energy, which was a lyric from Public Image. What was it called? Public Image Limited, punk band. So I've always thought that anger is, you can either turn anger, and if you don't deal with it, you will get very depressed, because unresolved anger, I think, turns to depression.
Yeah.
And I think all the psychiatrists and counselors watching all over the world now, chime in if you think I'm right. If you think I'm wrong, for heaven's sake, tell me. We have an open forum here. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm not saying I'm wrong. It's just my view. But if you channel that anger into energy and proper things, stuff which is going to propel you forwards, it's pretty useful. It's pretty damn useful to have.
Yeah, but I think by kind of trying to understand that anger, you can, perhaps you lose some of your drive in that case, but by understanding it, I think you're in a much happier place, and then you're still the same person fundamentally, but you're not kind of, you're in control of your own destiny then. Yeah. Otherwise, if you don't understand it, you're driven by something you don't fully understand. So trying to get to the bottom of that anger, even though it may drive you to interesting things, you're still left with the person you are. But I think then you can make your own decisions.
It's a little bit of a trade-off. It's a slight trade-off in that you may not be quite as creative, if that's what, if you're in the creative field, or quite as driven, but you can live a much nicer life without doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. This is back to Paul. See, we carry several strands all at once. It's like balancing sticks at the circus with plates on the end. P.S. One of my regular customers is an employment lawyer. Good. I've known her for years, and she's a friend of my sister-in-law. So much information here, Paul. Really. What's her shoe size? She will advise me and has offered her. There you go, boy. Get hold of her and take them to the cleaners if you can. If you can't, you can't. At least give it a go, because they need a bit of a smack. That's my personal view. So so the book came out when? When did the book come out?
So the book came out.
Hold it up to the screen so everyone can see it again.
Yeah, let's give it another go.
Absolutely. Put it down just a fraction, just down a fraction, because it's no. I meant the angle it just slightly towards the screen. That's so we can see it. Don't ask me about my dad.
Yeah. So it came out 2 weeks ago.
Oh gosh, good.
Yeah, published by HarperCollins, as I said, and it's available in bookshops and online, and as an audio version as well, read by me.
How long I'm really curious. I'm sorry, this is a completely selfish question. What the hell? How long did it take you to record it?
So it took 3 days to read the whole thing.
The whole book?
Yeah. but from starting from 10 in the morning all the way till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So very tiring
I
to
wouldn't think
read
that's a
all
big
that.
deal, but I can't believe you did that in 3 days because everyone's saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not making it about me. I'm really curious. I would have said that was like 2 weeks.
No, I mean, I think
Wow.
I did it quite quickly so apparently it can, but it's usually about 4 days, 3 or 4
Yeah.
days to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you went into a studio or you did it at home
Yeah,
or
you just do it in a studio. You go into a studio and there's one other person in the booth behind,
and does
and
it go, hello, Tom, this is Clem Fandango. Can you hear me?
yeah,
You have
exactly.
to know the show to get the reference. I can't do voice. As soon as someone says, hello, Russ, you can hear me, I have to do the Clem Fandango. Completely stupid, but that is me. Right, this is interesting. This is coming in from Dave Sleet. You're all being fantastic today. Thank you so much, Dave. Anger can be an anchor. Oh, that's interesting. And just like on a sailing boat, if you understand how to use the anchor, it doesn't have to hold you back. It can be used to move you and steer the direction. Dave Sleet, he's got a brain the size of Sussex or so. I don't know how he comes up with this stuff. And he's just a dazzling. We've met a few times, and he's just the most amazing chap. Interesting. Here we go. Elizabeth Green with her book, not on the script. No, mine was done in 3 days, not by me. Well,
There
Meryl
you
Streep does work very quickly, Elizabeth. Let's not kid ourselves. She's
go.
great. Good on you. You should have done mine. Well, that's fantastic. Audiobook. And where are you selling? Where are you doing the audiobook? There's
Well,
logic in
that
my madness. Come on. Where's the audiobook on? Is that on audio?
it's on Audible. On Audible,
And
the
was that
main.
done through the publisher?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ah, there we go. There we go. That makes perfect sense now. Thank you very much. We can move on from that little cul-de-sac of conversation. Anger is interesting as it's such a no-no. You have a right to be angry about certain things. You do
Yeah,
have a right. It's okay. It's just not being angry if the wind changes
but
direction.
I think it's about being angry at the right thing as well, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
if you work with people and you're always furious, but you're kind of furious because you have unresolved issues from your past, and actually you're really getting angry with your dad or your mum or the school teacher or
Yeah.
your friends from childhood or whatever. That's very unhelpful, isn't it? So it's
I'd
really about
also say,
understanding your own
Tom, and
anger.
Tom, I'm putting my hands in a hornet's nest here, so stand
Yeah,
by for action. Anything could happen in the next half hour. D. Anderson, is that you can't let the past constantly. I'm not talking about you. You had a terrible childhood, right? But you can't let it define you. If you've got to fight that it doesn't define you forever, because otherwise you've just wasted your life. They've made you waste your life.
yeah,
That's how I see it. We are where we are. We're in the here and now. And people who live in the past, no, got to look to the future.
yeah. I mean, for me,
Or
I
they've
was able
won. Or they've won, you know?
completely, but it's very hard to, though I felt that kind of tension in my life, I didn't really know that anything was wrong. So it was only when I kind of got older, and
Mm.
then my dad died.
How did you
And
also sound like a therapist on Harley Street, but how did you feel? And it's a serious question. I'm not messing around. When he died.
I felt a tremendous sense of relief that he had gone.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and I still maintained a relationship with him. I
What
think,
about your mum? Is your mum still around?
yeah, she is, yeah, and she never married again because I think she was sort
God,
of
I
put
wonder
off
why.
then
Go figure.
for good. But
Answers on a
it was
postcard.
really when my dad died, I was able to sort of be released from that kind of that spell really that he created, still wanting to be with him, not understanding what had happened, still requiring things from him myself that I had lacked in my life. So, and I think also then I met a woman, we fell in love, we had a baby together. And I think all those things kind of softened me a bit.
Mm.
And then it was very much seeing my son grow up and wondering what it did. It gave me a very different perspective. So I was able to think to myself, well, what if my son had seen the things that I had seen, or if what had happened to him had happened to me had happened to him. And then I could really see how incredibly, it would destroy his world. I could see that it would damage him, it would make him vulnerable. It would make, he wouldn't have anything to hold on to. And so seeing that, I was able to understand that maybe what had happened to me had had an effect on me. And some of those tensions that I felt in my life, maybe they were down to the things that had happened. And I was really seeing it through my son's eyes. I was able to do that. And then as soon as I did that,
but here's a point, and people are picking up messages like crazy on this show. Well done, Tom. You've been amazing, amazing guest.
Very happy to be here. Yeah.
And we'd love you back, because clearly you're resonating so much with everybody all over the world. It's this, when the reason I asked you about how you felt, because sometimes people feel guilty that they that person's gone and it was never resolved, and other people say, well, thank Christ for that cheerio goodbye, don't let the door hit you on the arse on the way out, which is kind of how I try to look at most things in life, right? Goodbye, cheerio, good luck. But where the problems really do arise is when the person, whether it be your father or whatever, has died. They're no longer there. So logic dictates they have no influence over your life anymore. But I think being haunted is not somebody going, in a sheet. Being haunted is by all the things you can no longer say to that person. F off is one of them. Or I'm not interested in you. You're a horrible person. Get out. Or whatever. And that is, when that's unresolved, that leads to terrible issues. So it's very interesting you felt as I'm so pleased. I mean, I've only met you for the first time today, but I'm so pleased you felt, phew, bye-bye.
Yeah, I think now I know anyway. I mean, I did once before.
Oh, he's frozen.
He died, tried to come, but he wasn't back. As I said earlier, he wasn't in a place to be able to admit it. Or take responsibility. So now he's gone. I don't feel any kind of regret because there was nothing I could have done. I couldn't have made him see what he had done. So just to be out of that situation, to not have sort of what I felt as a burden, really.
As we head up to the top of the show, I'm going to whip through some of these comments, because you have caused a sensation today, which is fabulous. Glassy Amanda, who's actually Amanda Glass, who's in the psychotherapeutic community. Depression is anger turned inwards. Absolutely. This is my absolutely so believe that. And important to release, obviously in a non-violent way, which is why I took up drumming. Then we've got Elizabeth Green. It's the unfairness, left outness, not love, that runs the anger. We could talk about that for the next 2 hours, Elizabeth. Boy, oh boy, try going to boarding school at 9. Glassy Amanda, anger gets us out of bed and moving forward. Look at my post this morning on Facebook, gang. Look at my post about the shark. That's it. Anger gets us out of bed and moving forward. Held in, it causes depression. Could not agree with you more. Elizabeth Green, but then their words linger on after they die. I actually talk to them and yell at them to go away. I actually I verbalize it. Tell them to get out of my head. I'm not interested. Go away. I don't want you in my head. Go. The fearful parents will suppress the awareness and resilience of the youngling as it maintains their control, says Dave Sleep. Oh, very interesting. And then we've got all about being loved, always and only that. You obviously love your son hugely, It defines us, kind of who we are. It adds so much to our lives. I was wondering why I was in such a good mood this morning, and I realized, we had lunch yesterday with the twins, the kids, they're 23, and it was just fantastic. We're just watching them grow, and it's lovely. It's a lovely thing. Family is everything if it works. Or family is a nightmare if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
What would you like to say in the final minute? What do you want to say to everybody? Actually, plug your book. Go on. Come on, you've been so great. Plug your book once more.
Well, as I said, it's published by HarperCollins. It's called Don't Ask Me About My Dad. My name's Tom Mitchelson, and the book's available at bookshops and online and on Audible. Really, what I hope the book is it tries to do is it tries to show what it's like from a child's perspective of growing up in that kind of environment. It tries to just lay it out. This is what happens. This is what it feels like. This is what grooming is. This is how it happens. This is what happened to me. And then really it's about the difficulties that leaves you with in adulthood. But then more importantly than that, it really is about for me, confronting those things.
And on that, we're going to have to leave it. We're right out of time, as they always say.
No worries.
Tom Mitchelson, you have been epic. Epic. Thank you so much. We'll see you Wednesday, 12 o'clock. Till then, try and stay out of trouble.